Hey, hockey fans, welcome to the 7-Eleven Overtime Podcast. I'm Gino Reda. You know, I've spent over 4 decades working in the game. Fortunate enough to meet some of the great legends of the game, saw them come into the league, watched them shine in the game, and now they've moved on to life after the game. The 7-Eleven Overtime Podcast gives us a chance to catch up, tell us some great stories, relive some great memories, and hear what they're up to today. Today, we're talking to a two-time Stanley Cup champion who was drafted by the Bruins in '85. Played 15 seasons in the NHL with 5 different teams, won the Canada Cup, won a world championship. He's the only player in history to win the Conn Smythe and the MVP at the Canada Cup and the World Championship. Now he's a goalie coach with the LA Kings. Pleased to welcome to the show, Bill Ranford. Bill, welcome to the show, my friend. Great to chat with you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been a while.
It has been a long time since you and I chat. And it's always interesting because week after week I get a chance to talk to guys. I actually had one of your bosses, Luke Robitaille, on a show a few weeks ago, and I always kind of wonder, you had such a great career, you had so much success. Why not just go somewhere and golf and relax and chill out and take it easy rather than continue to face the stress of the game of hockey?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. I really didn't see me going in that direction when I retired. I thought I'd be at home and just get involved in our little community in New Westminster, British Columbia. But yeah, I don't know. I started with Coquitlam Express as a part owner there with Kirk McLean and Darcy Rhoda and Dave Lowry, and kind of got a little bit of the bug there. But it wasn't until Dean Chenoweth called me. He was working for Seattle at the time and asked if I'd come in and work with his goalies a little bit. And that's kind of how it kind of got rolling there, where I started to learn, how to coach. And, Dean was a Hockey Canada guy, and, I learned a little bit from that aspect of things. And then obviously the next year I joined the Vancouver Giants and Don Hay, and Don was just, a wealth of knowledge. So just picked away there for a couple of years, and then I got the phone call from LA, and it's kind of been 18 years later with the LA Kings organization. So it's been a crazy ride, but you got to pay the bills. So what better way to do it than stay in hockey?
Can you believe the difference? I mean, I'm sure as a former goalie in the NHL, you appreciate the difference, but can you believe the difference of the help that kids are now getting coming into the league, and even veteran goalies? I mean, you spent some time working with Jonathan Quick trying to get his game back on track, and it clearly worked out for him. But can you believe the contrast and the kind of help the goalies are getting today that you're able to provide versus what you got during your playing days?
Yeah, I think I had my first, kind of full-time goalie coach year 13 when I was in Washington. So yeah, it's completely changed. I mean, there's pros and cons to it. I think there's certain times, and one of the things I try to do, over my time here in LA was every once in a while just step back and let the goalies just do their own thing and stay away. I kind of have my mindset that I'm just not going to talk to them today. Just let them figure it out themselves, because I think that's one of the things that in our time we relied on our partner. That our partner was our goalie coach, and you had to kind of figure things out on your own. But I'll tell you what, I know there's a lot of different times in my career where I wish I had a goalie coach to talk to try and figure things out, another set of eyes. And I think that's the best thing that the goalie coach can bring, is just that other set of eyes to help you out. And there's days when things are going well, anybody can play goal, but it's when things don't go well that you need that guy to kind of lean on for ideas. And I think that's what kids are now having at a way younger age. It's crazy, but the position has really evolved, and the goalies were really ahead of the curve. And now you're starting to see it with the individual coaching for the players now, where they're catching up, and it's that's what's created this crazy talented league.
Yeah, and the other part of it too is not just coaching when you're in the league, that the whole transition of coming out of college or major junior hockey, that as a goalie, because you're kind of on your own. When you're a player, you're surrounded by more guys who are doing the same thing that you're doing. Like, you got drafted by the Bruins, and you join the Boston Bruins, and you transition into that role. And it was kind of a brief stint in Boston, and you spent a little bit of time in the minors. What's that transition like as a young guy when you're trying to come into the NHL and there's really nobody around to help you? Because nobody, not that no people don't want to help you, but people don't know what to say to a young goalie. Do you leave the guy alone? Do you work with him? Do you try to fix? I mean, you must have that must have been quite the experience for you transitioning to the league.
Well, number one, you go from, either billeting or living at home, and I was obviously billeting in New Westminster, to living on your own, to paying your own bills, cooking your own food, and then you got to stop the hockey puck at some point. And it is a crazy transition in your life, and yeah, there's the ups and downs that go with it. Nobody to talk to a lot of times. In Boston, I was living with two other guys on the team, and we're all young guys and trying to carve our path into the NHL. And it's crazy when I think about it. I don't even really remember my first year pro. It was just a blur. I think you're just playing on adrenaline every night, and it was a blur. And I look back, and the fact that I got sent to the minors to start my second year was probably the best thing that happened to me, because I could go
Easy
down.
to say now, but not then.
Yeah, no, not then. And that back then, when it happened, I was heartbroken and stuff. But I was one thing that happened to me, and Maxie Offenberger was a gentleman that from Boston that worked in the Western Hockey League, and I think he did all the CHL leagues, where he did like a drug awareness, drug and alcohol program for the leagues. And I got to know him just a little bit from my 3 years junior, and he happened to be in town because he worked for the Flames at the time. And he met me on the stairs in Maine, and he said, I'm gonna give you a piece of advice. He said, I'm sure you're heartbroken and you're disappointed, but I'm going to tell you one thing. And at that time, there's 21 teams in the league. He says, there's 20 other teams watching. Don't mess it up. And it was just the greatest advice I got, because I thought, the Bruins didn't care about me anymore. You get those things, and they do. But I was given the opportunity just to go down there and play and actually learn how to play the game properly, instead of just playing on adrenaline the whole night. So it's a valuable lesson, and it's a story that I get to tell now, because I've got guys getting called up, sent down all the time, and I get to tell them that story, because it was a big part of my career.
I know, but your story was crazy, Billy, because now you get dealt for the Boston Bruins, and you're like, okay, maybe there's another team out there that wants me, and the team that ends up wanting you is the Edmonton Oilers, in the midst of a freaking dynasty. Yeah. So now this team, and they've got Grant Fuhr, who we've had on the show before, and told some great stories about that. What is that like when you hear, I'm going, sorry, what? I'm going where? And I'm joining who? Like, you're stepping out of the pan right into the fire. What was that like for you to hear that?
Well, I think, initially I was like, okay, I'm the goalie of the future for Boston. At some point, I'm going to get a chance to play a lot. And then I'm going to Edmonton, and they've got Grant Fuhr. I don't know if I'll ever play, but then the fact that I'm going back to Alberta, my parents live in Red Deer, back on the, basically the West Coast. I'm like, this could be fun. And obviously living in Red Deer for a couple of years, you're used to watching the Oilers. And my first practice, Daryl Ray is still there, and it was an unfortunate situation for him, because he was the one going down. So there was 3 goalies the first day, and I'm just kind of standing on the boards, and Teddy Green comes up to me and he's like, don't worry about what's happening today. Just I'll let you know Daryl's going to be sent down after practice. So just hang out here, try and get to know the guys. But I'm watching, I'm they're Wayne Gretzky skates by, Glenn Anderson, Yuri Kerr. You go down the list, Kevin Lowe, Randy Gregg, you just go down the list, and I'm just like kind of in awe. And then you got to kind of check your hat a little bit and say, these are my teammates, and I got a job to do here. So the first day was a little overwhelming, but just a great group of guys, and yeah, the organization treated me very, very well there, and I've got nothing but great memories from that city.
And just for another clarification, this is an era in the late 80s where there's no such thing as platooning. You have your number one goalie, and if your number one goalie's puking his guts out, he still has to play. If he's missing a limb, he's probably going to play, especially with the Grand Fuhrer, who never wanted to give up the net. So at that point, you got to understand, I'm a spectator here. Is that how you were feeling? Like, it's not like you're challenging for the job
Yeah,
at
no,
that point.
yeah. Well, the thing that was interesting was I think he had played so much hockey at that point. I think we split the games or near split down the stretch. So that at least gave me a bit of experience with that group. And then I was fortunate enough to, not only win my first cup, but go through that experience of what it takes, the ups and downs from round to round. You have to learn. Like I'd love to say it's easy, but it really set me up, for my opportunity that I was fortunate to get 2 years later. So
yeah, I want to ask about that. What was that like? Like when you won your first Stanley Cup, you didn't get a chance to play much, obviously, because you're playing behind Grant Fuhrer, who was the legend, ultimate hockey Hall of Famer. What was it like, though, to be a part of that? I mean, you won a cup, so that's freaking awesome. But what was it like at a personal level for you to learn from that experience, to see what it actually took Grant Fuhrer on a day-to-day basis to do what he did, and the guys around you to accomplish what they accomplished?
Yeah, it was huge for that next time around because you would understand, and obviously we lost the next year, and you just learn about the ups and downs of from game to game, from within the series, from round to round. Probably the biggest thing that I learned is, and it's unfortunate, there's a lot of guys that don't get the opportunity to go through it.
Yeah.
But until you played in a final, you have no idea. Like the games get intensified by round. The first round is usually the craziest because that's where the upsets happen and stuff, and it's just everybody's trying to get their footing. But once you get second and third, especially the third round, everybody's humming. Everybody's on their game. You're down to the final four. Everybody's good. They're feeling good about themselves. And then obviously you get to the final, and there's nothing like it. You're battling through injuries. You're battling through, just having the energy to play game to game. And back then, it was every second night. There was no, we're waiting for TV. It's just, you finish. You like, we finish in Chicago, you're flying right to Boston, and 2 days later you're starting the final. There's no 4 or 5 day breaks to recover, get all the media stuff done, get all the TV stuff done, and then start the series. No, we popped right into it. You're going, and so it was every second night. And so it was a battle, and I was fortunate enough to be part of it a few times, so I got no regrets as far as that goes.
Not just fortunate enough, Billy. Like, you're being humble. You were a huge part of it. So you win your first cup as a backup to Grant Fuhrer. That was in '88. The next year you guys lose. Now in 1990, in that season, the 89-90 season, Fuhrer's having some injury problems. You're playing a lot more. You become the guy. And now, I mean, my recollection of it is you played the best hockey of your entire career. You end up winning the Conn Smythe that year and the Stanley Cup. Obviously, dramatically different than winning your first cup. What was that experience like for you when you realized you were stopping looking in awe at the guys in the room? Suddenly, you were one of the guys that everybody was looking at and going, "This guy's leading us here."
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's certain things that happen. Obviously, you have to have the support of your teammates and your coaching staff, and people that watched back then know the story. Started off a little slow, had a terrible first game against Winnipeg, and then everybody's hitting the panic button, and a story that probably a lot of people don't know about is, John Muckler was the coach, and we had Ronnie Lowe, Teddy Green and stuff that were around, and they put in, well, one thing happened, which was probably the best thing that happened, was I faced the music. Media after the game, they could easily pulled me out and made me not available, but I think they thought it was important that I faced the music. And then there was a point where Glenn Sather walked in and said, okay, he's had enough. And that was done. So I think that was important from a learning aspect for me. You don't play well, you face the music. And the next morning, the coaching staff put a little bit of a video montage together showing me making saves throughout the year, and basically said, you're our guy. And
Wow.
so that just kind of, my whole frame of mind just goes, okay, I'm getting crucified in the media right now that, Grant Fuhr's not there, blah, blah, blah. I got to get my crap together and figure this thing out. And I made it a personal that I'm going to prove everybody wrong that I can do this, and just started picking away at the Winnipeg series, and we find a way to come back and win that after being 3-1. And I think we're only, at that time, I think we were the second or third team to ever come back from a 3-1 deficit. So, you just started building, and I think my confidence got better. The team's confidence in me probably got better. And we became that little tiny snowball, because nobody expected us to win in 90. Wayne Gretzky was gone. We made some changes, but we still had the core, but nobody expected it. And then that little snowball just kept rolling and getting bigger and bigger. And yeah, it was a ride, crazy ride, but so much fun.
After that rough start for you, and you turned it around and it clicked for you, in the end, you hoist the cup, which obviously there's no better feeling in the world. But getting the Conn Smythe and knowing that this time you weren't just a part of it, but you were a central figure in, that's what the Conn Smythe says, is that without you, they don't do this, which in all likelihood is true at that point. What was that like when they announced you as the Conn Smythe winner?
Yeah, there was no social media or anything back then. So you didn't really know where, I knew I was playing well, but when your name gets announced, it was, I was numb. I couldn't believe it. And I think the thing that I always say about the Conn Smythe is you can't win it without the support of your teammates. There's lots of guys that have to play well for you to get that opportunity to win it. And then on the flip side, I always say is they can't take my name off it. And that's something that I'll never, ever forget. It's on there. It's one of the most iconic trophies in the world. And my name's on it. And I'll be forever thankful to, from my family on to everybody involved that I was given that opportunity.
Amazing, man. You give me chills just talking about it. Week after week, I talk to Stanley Cup champs. We've had Trottier and, Luke and all these guys on the air talking about what it's like to be a part of winning organizations, and it never gets old. What was it like for the Bruins?
Obviously, I was a throw-in for the trade in '88. The big trade was for Jeff Courtnall, and they wanted a young goalie. So just to be part of that trade and have the experience was huge. But by the time 2 years later roll around, the trade was Andy Moog for myself, even though that wasn't the case. But
that's how we remember it, I got to tell you.
Yeah, exactly. So the fact that both of my Stanley Cup wins, the irony behind it, both my Stanley Cup wins were against the Bruins was pretty crazy. But the Bruins drafted me, forever grateful for that. And the city and the organization were great to me. I was there twice, love the city. But you know what? Somebody has to lose, and it was unfortunate. It was some of my old teammates. Just to go through it, to have that opportunity to go through it a couple of times as a player is, it's, what every young Canadian kid dreamed of, and I was able to do it. So it was pretty exciting.
Speaking of facing former teammates, Wayne Gretzky, he gets dealt away. And as you mentioned, he was not a part of the 1990 Cup win. He was part of your previous win, which was spectacular to celebrate the Stanley Cup with Wayne Gretzky. What else could you frickin' ask for? But October 15th, 1989, and I see that smile come across your face. So I'm pretty sure you remember this night very clearly. For our audience, Billy, listen, I talked about your cups. I got to talk about this.
Yeah.
Share the story for us on that night.
You're obviously talking about when he set the record.
Yes. Set World Gordie Howe's points record.
Yeah. The part that was, it didn't bother me that it happened against me. It has to happen against somebody. The two of his biggest accomplishments were against myself and Kirk McLean, and everybody that'll always go down into history. I think the frustrating part about that night was we were leading late in the game, and it was hard because the crowd was cheering for Gretz to get the record in the building. I think that was at the time the toughest pill to swallow. The fact that we were in our own building and they were cheering for the LA Kings, the team that I now work for.
But they wanted to see history, Billy. Who could blame
exactly. Them? And I think that was probably the toughest aspect of it, was that they weren't cheering for us, and we were in our own building. But it had to happen against somebody, and that picture is etched in stone somewhere, and everybody gets to see it on a very regular basis. But hey, I was part of history again. Not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. He was a great player. I mean, great person, great player. I was fortunate enough to be able to play with him and play against him. And you know what? He's the greatest, and that's for a reason.
It wasn't the only time that you got to play with the greatest players, many Hall of Famers and best of all time. You represented Canada very successfully, and I'm sure very, very proudly. Give me your thoughts, your memories of the Canada Cup in 1991.
Well, the biggest thing about the Canada Cup was I was very, very young, a young player, just kind of finding my way, obviously come off winning the Stanley Cup. There was Grant wasn't able to go, Patrick wasn't able to go, so it was Belfour, myself, and Sean Burke, and I was kind of the number 3 guy. And at
the start, you were the number 3 guy.
Yeah, when I started, I was the number 3 guy. Berkey had the experience with Hockey Canada, and then Eddie was coming off an unbelievable season, and obviously his head coach is our head coach in Mike Keenan. So I was just living the dream, going through the experience, and we started off, I believe, with 60 players at that camp. It was a month-long training camp, and guys were getting picked off. I think we started off with 6 goalies, because I think we were 3 teams, 2 goalies each, and guys were just starting dwindling, and the numbers just kept getting smaller and smaller, and my name wasn't crossed out. Do
you not find that hilarious? You're a 2-time Stanley Cup champion. You're the Conn Smythe winner, and you're like, I'm probably going to get cut here.
Yeah, no, it's that I just, everybody knew Eddie Belfour was starting, and that's the way it was going to be. And it was between, got to the point where it was between whether Sean and I were going to be sitting on the bench, and the third guy would be the third guy. And yeah, it was crazy. And then just kept picking away, and then all of a sudden the last kind of week, and I would play a game and I played well, and then all of a sudden there's these rumblings that that I'm hearing from different people on our staff that are like, you might be starting. I'm like, no, that ain't happening. And Keenan came in the room, the exhibition was done, and came in the room and told everybody that I was starting the first game, and I didn't give it back. I just went right through, and and playing in your own country. It was the economy was it was crazy. It was the country was not in a good place, and the hockey, for whatever crazy reason, was something for the country to rally around, and to be part of that was nuts. To find a way to pick your country up over a crazy sport like hockey, but we were able to do that for a 2-week period, and to be part of that was pretty amazing.
Again, not just part of that, Mr. Humble, but you actually won the MVP, which is
yeah, Gretz got hurt. I think which helped a little bit on that one. No, I it was one of those things where I got into a groove, and I was playing good hockey. We were playing like it was the best in the world. Like the teams, you go back and look at those rosters, it's crazy. It was Hall of Famers everywhere, and I just got on. I got to a point where basically they couldn't say no. They had to keep playing me, and I just my game just got better and better as the tournament went along, and that's one of those things where you just you feel good about your game, you feel good about your teammates, and you get rolling and you win it, and it's all history now.
Let me take you to the 1994 World Hockey Championships. Canada, this was back in previous to this, we weren't sending pro players. Now it's the NHL season ends as guys get knocked out of the playoffs and don't make the playoffs or first or second round eliminated. They get to go play at the Worlds. That's one of the upsides of not going deep in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But back then, we were always sending an amateur team, which kind of put Canada at a disadvantage because our best players were pros. It had been the Trail Smoke Eaters 30 years before that, the last time Canada wins gold. And you're on the 1994 World Championship team that wins the first gold in over 30 years. And again, you're named the tournament MVP. What was it like to be a part of that? Again, winning a world championship for Canada at a time where that was not something that was happening because of the situation.
Yeah, no, I think you got to give our group of guys credit to finally turn that around, and I think Glenn Sather kind of was a big part of that also, because he started to kind of change the culture of how that tournament happened. It was a big fundraiser for Hockey Canada. That's where it would drive their next year. So the success there was important, but slats started to change, where started to bring the wives or girlfriends or a personal friend over. You had that opportunity to bring somebody over, and he finally realized that you go through a grueling full season in the NHL and then have to go over and play this tournament. There's this letdown. You're disappointed you're not in the playoffs, or you've just been knocked out of the first round, and to get yourself riled up to play in a tournament, it wasn't your dream is to win the Stanley Cup, not the World Championships. And so it just wasn't ingrained in us for that to be important. Whereas for a lot of the European teams, it was their pinnacle was this World Championships. So Slats started to try and change it into a little bit more of a family thing. And I think that was a big part of where things started to change and made it an experience, a family experience. Players went over for the first half and then brought families over for the second half. So I think that was a big part of the turn. And we just once again, at that time, it was a very, very young team. But take a look at the names that were on that team, and there's just a boatload of superstars that at that time weren't. And we just found a way, and to go through that, and then it to be a shootout was incredible to end it.
Crazy. I mean, and we still talk about that was the World Championship down the drought, and you were obviously a centerpiece of that, which is amazing, because we talk about, I've had guys, members of the Triple Gold Club on this podcast before, guys who have won the Stanley Cup, World Championship, World Junior, Olympic gold, like crazy. It's amazing. But you're the only guy who's won the Conn Smythe, MVP at the Canada Cup, and MVP at the World Championship. What's that mean to you?
It's a great trivia question that Brendan Shanahan has won a lot of money with.
So Shanny should owe you a cut then, no?
Shanny has told me he's used that question a lot of people and nobody gets the answer. It's always Gretzky, Lemieux, Korea. They go through the list of names and stuff, and my name never gets brought up. So it's it's an honor. I'm not going to lie. And the thing is, because there's no more Canada Cup, nobody will do that in their lifetime. So it's a huge honor. And I always look at, I'm a humble person, and you don't do it without your teammates. And to get the opportunity to be able to do that in three great settings is I've in my office at home, I've got the three jerseys hanging together, and never forget it. All three were different experiences, but all amazing in themselves for different reasons. The special one, the famous call, "It is over," is something that still gives me chills to this day. And a funny story about that whole shootout aspect is Koivu was one of the shooters in that tournament, and I watched him. I've never cheated on like a breakaway or anything in my life, and I actually cheated to stop him. I watched him the day before. Our dressing room was on the practice side of the arena, and I was watching him doing shootouts, and he was going to his backhand every time. And I actually baited him over there and then jumped over to that side and stopped him. But it was a crazy event,
Really, that's not cheating. That's good scouting.
Yeah, well, we didn't scout back then, so. But it was just one of those crazy events that we were able to be part of, and we didn't have shootouts back then, and to go through that process, and just crazy things that I remember. I'd come back to, you had to, it's different than the NHL shootouts. You had to go back to your bench after every shot. And the guys tell me the story later is that the coaching staff like cleared a spot for me. And, you get in that zone, and it wasn't until I saw the video of it. There's me sitting by myself with the whole team scrunched together on the other half of the bench, and they're like, "Leave him alone." I didn't know about this till afterwards. And that's where it's just, you're just in that zone, and you find these stories out afterwards. And if you ever see the video of it, you see me, I'm basically sitting by myself on the bench between shots. It's the most crazy. And then you take a shot, you skate to your bench, your team shoots, you got to skate back to the goal. It's the dumbest thing, but that's what they did. So yeah,
it may have been dumb, but it was successful, and it worked real well, my friend.
Yeah, it worked. But yeah, it's just some of those crazy stories that you don't realize how people think and what they think you need. And I don't know, I was just in such a zone, I wouldn't even have known if guys were sitting beside me or not. But the fact that they weren't was kind of weird.
I was doing the math in my head now, and I think that you've been a coach in the league now longer than you were actually a goalie in the league, working with the LA Kings. And just like you won the two cups with the Oilers as a player, you've now won two cups as a coach for the Kings in 2012 and 2014. So you got 4 Stanley Cup rings. Does that ever make your head spin when you go, wow, there's guys who've never had a taste of this, and I got 2 as a goalie and 2 as a coach as well?
Yeah, I'm forever grateful. There's some great people that never got the opportunity, and the fact that I've done it twice as a player, twice as a coach is, I don't do it very often, but you pull the rings out of the safe every once in a while, and you look at them and you go, it's just each ring is iconic in itself. There's different traits to each one of them, and you look at them and you're just like, I'm a lucky person, and at some point, I'll pass them on to my kid, my two girls, and they can pass them on to their kids at some point. But forever they'll be in our family.
Now, I've heard rumor about this, so I want to ask you about this. You don't only have the rings to remind you of what you accomplished. Is there some body ink that you want to tell us about? A tattoo?
Yeah. The one thing I've done is I did
you got to tell the story about how you came to doing it too. I can see you going red. You got to tell the audience about how that decision was made.
Well, it wasn't really much of a decision. Well, there's two stories. They're crazy. You're obviously talking about the LA Kings one, but there's actually the first tattoo that I ever had done was designed by my good friend Jeff McLean, that probably a lot of people now know of because of the Pride tape that he was the creator of. But I have a Celtic kind of right across my back, and what he designed in it was a Canadian flag. Yeah. And the stem of the flag is there's basically 3 X's on my back for the number 30, and then the maple leaf is in the middle in red, and then the stem of the maple leaf is TC for my 2 daughters, Tristan and Cassidy. Yes. But the story you're talking about is a good bet that I had with my good friend Jamie Compon, that's with a coach with the Florida Panthers. Is we'd won the first cup, and everybody was doing everything tattoo wise and stuff like that. And I'm the type of person that, I'm all when I decide on something, I'm all in. But we got going in our second cup run, and he's like, "You keep talking about getting another tattoo, but you never do it." He said, "If we win the cup, you're getting a tattoo the next day." And I'm like, whatever. Okay. And so sure enough, we win the cup, and he phones our good friend Kim Singh, and I am the next morning. This is crazy. I'm the next morning sitting in a tattoo chair, but all I knew is that, we have a love for Hawaii, and it's 2:00 in the morning, and I am sending what I think of a idea of a design to put on my calf with turtles. And we're not in very good shape. My wife and I, Jamie and his wife at the time when we're talking about this, and I think it's like 1:00 the next day, and I'm sitting in a tattoo chair, and I have a beautiful tattoo done by Kim, where she put a big turtle, which is the daddy turtle, and then 2 little turtles for my 2 girls, and then Ohana, which means family in script. And we the next day it was done, and painful it was, but it will forever have a great story behind it, and that it's on there obviously for a lifetime, the rest of my life. But that was a crazy thing that Jamie Compon convinced me to do, and I don't hedge on bets, and so I got it done.
That is a great story. You are a great story.
How did you find out about that story?
Dude, it's my job. I've been in the broadcast for
crazy
40 years.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, you threw me on that one. I wasn't expecting that question.
You know what? I've really appreciated. You've been so unbelievably gracious with your time. It's so nice to catch up with you. We do a little feature on the show we call 5 Fast Facts. I don't want you to think about this too much. I'll ask you 5 quick questions, and you give me the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay?
Okay, I'll try.
All right, here we go. Time now for 5 Fast Facts with 2-time Stanley Cup champion Billy Ranford, 4-time Stanley Cup champion if I include the times you did as a coach. First up, best teammate you ever played with?
Craig Muni.
Who was the best coach you ever played for?
Oh, Glenn Sather.
Who was the player you hated playing against the most, and why?
Mario Lemieux. Long. He could change the puck 12 feet in 1 second.
Your favorite NHL city to play in?
Oh, probably Montreal because of the history.
If you hadn't become an NHL player, what career do you think you would have done instead?
School teacher. Phys ed teacher. Yeah.
Wow. Phys ed teacher. Good for you. So, yeah, sure. Like the keeping.
Tried to start it in university, but got called up.
Just between me and you, I think you made the right call.
Yeah. My wife and kids are school teachers, so they took it over for me.
That's awesome. Billy, I'm so glad that you're doing so well still. You look great. You look like you're feeling healthy and happy. Couldn't be happier for you. It was so great to reminisce for the last half hour over some of the great stuff that's happened in your lifetime. Thank you for this.
Well, I thank you for having me on. It's been a real pleasure. And, it's anytime we can talk hockey, I love it.
All right, buddy. Good luck to you, my friend.
All right. Thank you.
Two-time Stanley Cup champion as a player, 2 more as a goaltending coach, and a Conn Smythe winner, Billy Ranford. The Overtime Podcast is proudly presented by 7-Eleven and Athletes Care. Before leaving the rink, order your favorite Slurpee, fresh 100% premium Arabica coffee, hot from the oven pizza and wings, bite of ice cream, or even a carton of milk, a dozen eggs, loaf of bread from the 7 Now app, and Team 7-Eleven will have your order ready for pickup 24/7. Athletes Care is proud to be celebrating its 25th year offering sports medicine services to both elite athletes and the general population who require rehab for a new or a chronic injury or pain. Go to where the best go. Athletes Care Sports Medicine Clinics with 24 locations in the Greater Toronto Area and Ottawa. Hey, if you missed any parts of the show, don't worry. Visit our website at overtimepodcast.ca, where you can both listen, subscribe to future shows, and the 7-Eleven Overtime Podcast can be found on Spotify, iTunes Podcasts, or any of your favorite podcast platforms. As well, please check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel at O Time Podcast. Until next week, I'm Gino Reda saying so long, hockey fans, and thanks for joining us on the 7-Eleven Overtime Podcast.